Welcome to our newest experiment, doing these weekly Zoom live streams around inspiration and transformation. We have felt that our work, and despite that inspiration is sometimes not super understood, and we're trying to make it more accessible, that this is the right time to be talking about how we can inspire in times like these and how we are transforming. And it's very appropriate that we have Raj, that we have you on the call today. I'm going to let Jen do the introductions, but thank you so much for agreeing to come onto our experiment, our weekly experiment.
So I was trying to remember how I met Raj, and I believe it was through Andrea Goulet. Was it Andrea? Andrea
Yep.
Goulet?
Through Allison.
Yeah, through Allison. And we have had the opportunity over many years now to do more formal work together, and conversely, Raj has become both a friend and I would say even a mentor to me. When tough things have come up, he is on my short list of people to call, and there aren't many people on that list. And so I'm so grateful for our friendship and our partnership. And as all of this began to unfold, I mean, you are who came to mind. I think you have a lot to offer to this conversation, not only the social equity conversation, but like how to lead lasting change conversation. So I'm so grateful to have you here.
Thank you. Well, we show up for each other, Jen, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, good. So we thought we would just start with, just share a little bit about Provoc, the Provoc story and the journey that you've been on with Provoc, and how you ended up moving in a direction of social equity, and how you knew that was a calling for you and for the firm.
Sure. Thank you. So I'm Raj Aggarwal. I'm president and founder of Provoc. I started Provoc in 1999. And in about 2002, 2003, I was introduced to this group called the Social Venture Network. Social Venture Network was comprised of businesses that knew that they could not only make a profit, but also impact society and the environment. And they came together in about 1987. And these were folks like people that started Ben & Jerry's, Seventh Generation, Stonyfield Farm, a lot of the well-known companies that have really led like this organic product movement. And I had felt for a long time that when starting my business that I wanted to help small businesses and nonprofits at the time. At that time, I was doing all of our graphic design, all of our marketing, all of our messaging. And I realized that most of these businesses just didn't have access to a lot of the tools that a lot of them have almost turnkey today. And that so much of the design that I saw around me just was not of high quality, and I could provide it to them for a less expensive price at the time. And so in 2003, after I heard about the Social Venture Network and realized that there was a whole group of businesses that had centered the benefit of society and environment in their work, I tell people it was what taught my heart how to sing, because all of a sudden I was given this language that was never available to me before on what it means to have a business that can make an impact in the world. And now that's obviously a lot more commonplace. There's a lot of questions about how that happens, et cetera. And so over the almost 21 years we've been in business, we've helped over 450 nonprofits and socially responsible businesses. We only work with groups that we have a strong values alignment with. I would say in about 2013, it was a really big pivotal moment for us. We found that the marketing world that we were in was getting really crowded. All of a sudden, Obama had come on the scene. My friends helped to create the technology that he ran his platform on. And all of a sudden, everybody was realizing that they really need to up their digital and their technology game. And we realized that the game had, the field had become pretty crowded. And I realized the best way for us to be able to stand out at that time was to really go internal and really think about the type of impact that we want to make in the world and go really deep with a few clients. And so we really had an opportunity to work on what ended up being, which ends up being the world's largest Alzheimer's prevention platform in the world that was recently covered by Bill Gates. We helped the Smithsonian create their first pan-institutional brand outside of the Smithsonian. We helped to brand the largest animal welfare funder in the world, and a few other really marquee projects at the time, just as a result of realizing, instead of trying to be like everybody else, what can we do on our own that that is inspiring to us and we know provides a lot of value to our clients. And so on that journey of going more internal and understanding what it is that we exist in our business for, in 2016, we came together prior to the 2016 election and asked ourselves, what's the most important work that we can do as marketers? And that was to help dismantle systemic inequities, primarily racism. And so a month later, we got an RFP from a client. I really believe in the power of intention, especially the collective intention of our entire group. And we went really deep with this group called the Government Alliance for Race and Equity. They're a part of Race Forward and the Center for Social Inclusion and the Haas Leadership Institute out of Berkeley. And we worked with them for 2.5 years to dismantle systemic racism in 5 cities around the country. And so we really got to go really deep with them and learn with practitioners that have been focused on racial equity for decades on how to go about dismantling the systemic inequities that government perpetuates on a regular basis. And what that's launched into is an entire practice led by Venice Dunn, who's our Director of Equity, on how to embed racial equity into our communications. And part of that has also led to working with many organizations that want to center racial equity in their work by walking along with them on the path, because this work isn't just about branding and it's not just about equity washing. It's about really doing the deep internal work that is necessary to be able to embody that work with authenticity and integrity. And so I'm sure that many people are wondering about what that means, but it requires a lot of education, a lot of assessment, and really asking yourself, like, if you're going to make these claims about being an organization that centers racial equity, and now we're hearing a lot more about anti-racism, are you really able to do the hard work inside to be able to communicate that? Because you're going to get challenged on it, particularly by people that have been perpetuated or have been impacted by systemic inequities, to see if it really is something that you really hold true to or something that you just say that you do.
Raj, I have a very, very quick question before Jen goes in. There may be no difference, but can you define equity versus equality, or define that just for anyone listening who might not know?
Yeah, so there's a lot of infographics around this, and it's kind of a funny conversation within this field. But equality says that everybody gets the same thing. Equity really takes into place the fact that there isn't a level playing field for everybody, and even if everybody did get the same thing, they wouldn't be in the same position as another. And one of the graphics that you might see is that there's a fence in front of people, and there's a fence, and people are standing on different size like boxes in order for them to be of the same height as everybody else. But the real question is, why is there even a barrier in the first place? And the fact is, the barrier exists to help benefit some people and not to benefit others.
Thank you.
So one of the things that we built in this process was a project called racialequityhere.org. And so we worked with the group that I mentioned for 2.5 years. And through working with them, we developed an 80-page communications guide, which is the formative guide of how government can talk about racial equity, both internally and externally, as well as helping to provide a campaign that we developed called racialequityhere.org that anybody can go on to if you're a nonprofit, foundation, company, and can make a public commitment to racial equity, and then get access to tools that we created with these luminaries on what it means to educate yourself about the history of race and racism in this country, and access to more resources about things that you can do about it.
Great.
Yeah, it's really kind of amazing how much is happening in the last several weeks. I'm just curious about what you're thinking about this event. Like, what's happening in your head around all of this?
Yeah, well, one thing I've been wondering that's kind of really real and true is like, if you're not doing something about this right now, or if your vocation doesn't allow you to do something right now, I think I'd be really struggling. Like I personally get to really be in this work as much as I can on a regular basis. And last week in particular, I was just really grateful that I could show up in service to a lot of people that have an impact on a lot of people. Um, One, I don't, I've been trying not to use the word moment or event or time, because this has been going on for over 400 years, since the advent of the first enslaved Black person onto the soil of the United States. There is I was working with someone this past week. His name is Brandon Anderson, and he runs a company called Rahim.org. It's a AI platform to record police violence for both the police side as well as from the people that have may witnessed or been a victim to this type of experience. And he reminded me, he's like, because we're working on an interesting project, hopefully with him. And he goes, because when this happens again, I was like, oh, when this happens again. And for folks that don't know, last night an unarmed Black man was killed by police in New Jersey. So there's, this is, I wish it would end tomorrow, now, yesterday, years ago, but it has not. And so I think that actually, I don't know what I think. What I hope is that for myself is that I know that there have been moments where I've been complicit by not thinking about this or doing something about it on a regular basis. And what I just, my commitment to myself is keeping this front of mind every single day.
I think that's interesting, Raj. I actually think what you just said has been on my mind a lot, which is, what does keeping something front and center look like for me, right? I'm a white woman, and I know I have a deep feeling and commitment to keeping it front and center, and I want to make sure, kind of like anything else that I practice, that I've learned to practice in my life, what does it look like to keep that front and center? What does that practice of making sure that it's there look like?
Yeah, I think for me, and it's going to be different for most people, because Black people don't have I want to be careful. I'm not speaking on behalf of the Black people, but is that they don't have the luxury of not thinking about this.
Right.
They have the proverbial knee on their neck at every moment of every single day. And so for me, it's educating myself. B, it is speaking out immediately as soon as I hear things. C, it's seeing what I can do to have it show up in our work and center it in our work. Yeah, like I was on a call with a bunch of old college friends on Saturday night, and people refer to, oh, the rioters. And this was a group of brown people. And I was like, oh, God. And so I didn't want to mess up the boat at first, right? Oh, because we're having a good time. We haven't talked to each other in 20 years. But I got so internal at that time. I'm like, I have to say something. And I said something about what this means and what MLK said about what, a quote unquote right is. It's the voice of the unheard. And then I was able to be free in that moment. So like this moment that sometimes comes across my heart where I'm like, oh, I can't say this thing because it doesn't feel good, or I might not be accepted, or people might be like, oh, why are you bringing us down? Like, I have no more excuses for not being able to speak up. I know better, and I have constant opportunities for practicing that.
I love, Raj, that in that moment you took enough space to figure out what was true in your heart, right? And that MLK came forward. I mean, really, really a lovely example of Allison will appreciate I'm saying this, right? Viktor Frankl's, like, there's a space between stimulus and response, and that's where the power is. That's where we all can learn. Yeah.
So one of the things, and I don't know how much time we have today, about my personal experience of pain and transforming and building a new for lasting change. So between 1999 and 2003, I developed a really good opiate addiction. And so that not only was a powerful experience for me in which I learned so much, but it was also a painful experience. And so I believe that experience of both the pain I caused myself and others has obviously been really formative to me, and has really taught me a lot about resiliency. And sometimes I think to a fault, because I think there are moments where I choose to be resilient where I'd rather just not, and just surrender to whatever is happening in the moment. COVID and these experiences of the last couple of weeks have really brought that forward in me, about this, showing up in the moment, as well as being able to experience whatever pain or discomfort I have. And I'm also, recently single, and so I've been alone in COVID. In quarantine. I've never traveled this little in my entire life, and it's been a real opportunity for me to sit with myself as much as possible. But the thing that I learned through my recovery from my heroin addiction is that pain is such a good teacher. And I remember early on, as I started to come out of my drug-induced haze, that I started to understand like the range of emotions that I could have. And I had felt so much euphoria in my drug experience that too helped to increase the capacity of my heart to be able to feel joy and share joy, and hopefully help to inspire that in others. And also the other side of like what it means to feel pain. And so I feel like this spectrum, you can't have one without the other. And so, how I relate it to this current moment is there's wisdom in discomfort. So like when I'm going through some massive change in my life, so let's just say it was like a breakup, or it was like losing a contract, or transitioning out of, something that I've been a part of for a long time, I've been able to remind myself that there is a state of mind and a state of consciousness, a state of emotions that is providing me wisdom at that time, that if I just listen, it's totally available for me. But I often don't want to because it feels so uncomfortable. But even that state of mind is providing me information in the same way that joy or happiness is providing me information.
Well, one of the things that I love about you is you really do always look to kind of push yourself into the next learning edge, and that's not comfortable. It's really often not comfortable. It first requires that we ask questions about what we don't know, and I'll never forget sitting across the table from you, and I had noticed that you ate a lot of fruit, and I was like, what's going on with Fruit Boy? And I think I said, like, what's with all the fruit? And you told me about like the practice of fasting. And I mean, can you just say a little bit about, because talk about, building a muscle. It's not necessarily comfortable to go all fruit regularly, right?
And for me, it's not regularly, but it is every Tuesday. So I guess, once a week I do that. And, it's a practice that the males in my family have done for centuries to honor Lord Hanuman, which is a deity in Hinduism. And so he represents strength, loyalty, and courage. He's a deity of my family, and as well as other spiritual practitioner people that I follow, like Ram Dass and Krishna Das. And so, so that's what we do. And so, every Tuesday, just fruit and like liquids all day. And then I have a nice meal at night, and I've really gotten comfortable with, that's what I do. And I really like it because it's a reset, instead of thinking about every day, like what I'm going to be eating, it's like very clear what the decisions are. It's kind of like maybe wearing Steve Jobs's black turtleneck, you just know what you're going to do on Tuesdays. Same thing with the shirts, Laura, right? It's like, oh yeah, I know I'm going to wear yellow today.
Yeah, I want to just come back to the discomfort, because I think that the notion of sitting with discomfort is something that is becoming a global collective experience. I mean, it happened with COVID. COVID made this global discomfort. And for those, I'm also, I was alone. I've been alone in the COVID experience. And so there's a lot of discomfort in that, right? When we sit with the feelings of discomfort, it's, you know, my daily kind of mantra is to have the courage to stay with the discomfort, to give me what I need to be able to just stay there. And then of course, in recent weeks, everyone's having their experience. And I feel like even in professional conversations and in talking with leaders and in everything that we're doing, there's that first feeling of, how do I move this conversation along so we move it out of the uncomfortable phase? Like, let's have it quickly, and then we'll move into whatever else we have to talk about. And I think it's a real challenge, and more so than a challenge, an invitation, I think, at this moment to support each other, to support our clients, to support everyone who we're in touch with, to stay in the discomfort, to play with that edge, with leaning into something that is uncomfortable, knowing that, to your point, and I practice this and I believe this, there's tremendous wisdom and insights and growth, and the actual transformation comes from it. It's only going to come with our commitment to stay in the discomfort. So I really appreciate that invitation from you to really think about that.
My neighbor said something along the terms of, there's something that COVID has shown us about how we're all the same and all connected, which isn't true, but because everybody's experiencing COVID differently. Particularly Black people are most impacted by COVID for a number of reasons. But it's something that has allowed for the uprising to be in the last 2 weeks. That has allowed people to come together, because there is a greater feeling of solidarity through collective pain, collective suffering, and also understanding that each of us carries the life of the other, you know, in ourselves. And if we didn't do the right thing, like wear a mask or quarantine or something like that, we could inflict death on another.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels very much interconnected. It's like the universe has known what it's doing all along.
Just got to get out of the way.
Yeah, exactly.
It really is. It's an amazing time to be alive and to have the opportunity to make a difference. In closing, I want to just share that I know I have been overwhelmed with resources that are coming my way. I know that I have enormous amounts of education to do for myself as a starting point, uncomfortable education, movies that are going to be hard to watch, books that are going to be hard to read. Where would you recommend through all of the resources? Where shall someone start?
There's a lot coming at people, and I don't want to advocate for one thing over the other, but I can tell you that for something that's been helpful to me is like a book like Ta-Nehisi Coates' Between the World and Me, and then Ava DuVernay's 13 on Netflix. And both those, I think, are both, you know, this letter between, you know, a Black father and his Black son about his experience is just, it's so, there's a story of it, there's the empathy, that just comes so through in the way that he's writing, that I think is really pivotal to people. And then 13 is just really talking about mass incarceration and the prison pipeline, and how it's just the new, you know, it's just continuation of slavery. And so you have both the facts, and then you also have a one person's individual account, I think will really been really impactful to me and to others. And then there's Ibrahim Kendi's How to Be an Anti-Racist is also helpful. But for some reason, I feel like, I mean, everybody got their own thing, but for me, like, those other things are, first, I need to sit in the discomfort of understanding those things before I start to, you know, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, pull yourself in deep first.
Yeah. it's going to hurt, and it's okay.
Yep.
It's okay.
It's all part of the human experience.
So Raj, I'm obviously excited to continue the conversation with you. I hope that we can come back to this sometime soon, and as we're all evolving and learning, continue to deepen our perspective together.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jen. And, you and Allison and Serena at the time, and Gabriella too, and Gabrielle. But we, you were with us right at that time where we were really trying to figure out like how we operationalize and move this stuff forward. And so just really want to thank you for being such a good coach and steward and helping to guide us at that time. And yeah, thank you.
It was our pleasure. Thank you.